The Purdy brothers and their company, the Purdy Boat Company, designed and built custom yachts and race boats that in the first half of the 20th century were comparable in reputation and quality to that of Tiffany in the jewelry business. This slideshow is a story of that company and one particular class of boats, the Biscayne Baby. In the early years of the 20th century, Gilbert Purdy and Edward Purdy worked for Consolidated Shipbuilding, with Gil as their chief designer and Ned as the shop foreman. One of their best customers at Consolidated was Carl Fisher, and in 1914, Carl lured the Purdys away from Consolidated and set up a shop for the Purdys to build boats for him. Carl Fisher loved speed, and early on he was a bicycle racer and moved on to fast cars and fast boats. He was a co-founder of a company that was later sold to Union Carbide for $210 million in today's dollars. He was also a co-founder of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a co-founder of the Lincoln Highway, and of the Dixie Highway. He was one of the first developers in the Miami Beach area, and Carl had many ideas and was a tireless promoter. Purdy's first shop was in the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. By year's end, they had moved the shop to Miami Beach. The Purdys were the second family to live year-round on the island. And in 1919, they moved the shop to Trenton, Michigan, and in 1925, the shop was finally located in Port Washington, New York. This photo is of the interior of the shop in 1926. The uncompleted Gold Cup racers in the photo are on the left, Rascal, Hotsy Totsy, and on the right, Rowdy. The latter was being built for Carl Fisher. The Purdys built many well-known boats, and a few are still in existence today. This boat, Imp, is a Purdy design and was the Gold Cup winner for the 1929 race for unlimited hydroplanes. It is still in existence today. Aphrodite is a 72-foot commuter yacht built for John Whitney in 1937. The boat was used by him to commute from his home in Long Island to his office in Lower Manhattan. Aphrodite was recently rebuilt, replacing all of the wood in the boat. Note the unusual stern of the boat. This is a 1937 photo of Aphrodite. Over the years, the guest list of the boat included such luminaries as Fred Astaire, Sir Laurence Olivier, Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, an FDR advisor, Harry Hopkins, Nelson Rockefeller, Henry Ford II, and as shown in this photo, Shirley Temple holding a birthday party. In 1919, the Purdys built this boat. It was called Altona, later renamed Zipper. This is a Purdy design boat, also named Zipper. In 1924, while building yet another boat for Carl Fisher, Carl got the idea of building 10 race boats of the same design and used them to promote his real estate ventures in the 1925 Miami Regatta. Carl commissioned the Purdys to design and build 10 of these boats that were called Biscayne Babies. They were an 18-foot long boat with a large engine in them. They made their debut in the 1925 Miami Regatta. All of the boats were piloted by Indy drivers. This was the winning boat that year with Lewis Chevrolet at the helm. Being ever the promoter and entrepreneur, Carl sold advertising on the brightly painted boats. In In the interest of speed, the boats were lightly constructed. As it turned out, they were too fragile. At the end of the season, all the boats had their engines and hardware removed, and the boats were burned. In the fall of 1925, 10 new babies were built, using stronger construction techniques. These new, stronger boats raced in the 1926 Miami Regatta. Records show that some of the boats were still racing as late as 1939. In this photo, some of the babies are racing in Manhasset Bay, Long Island. Perhaps the most famous owner of a Biscayne Baby was T.E. Lawrence, also known as Lawrence of Arabia. After returning from the Middle East, Lawrence suffered a breakdown and resigned his commission in the army and changed his name to Shaw and joined the RAF as an airman. Lawrence, or Shaw, acquired one of the babies in 1929 and used it as a seaplane tender. Lawrence named his boat Biscuit. The woman on the boat with him is Claire Sidney Smith. She was the wife of his commanding officer. Claire wrote a book about her friendship with Lawrence. The book is titled The Golden Rain. The book gives many details of their adventures in Biscuit. While reading a book titled Boats by Purdy by Alan Den, I discovered that he had a complete set of plans for the Biscayne Baby. I had been looking for a project, and building this boat looked like the perfect thing. After getting a set of drawings from Alan, I set out to find the engine. The engine I needed was a Scripps F6 marine engine, and the company had gone out of business over 60 years ago. I looked for over 2 years before finding an engine. The engine I found was a 1924 and had been sitting neglected in the back room of an auto repair shop for over 40 years. After shipping the engine to Portland, the rebuild began. Since the engine was so old, most of the internal parts that needed to be replaced had to be custom made. With the engine rebuild underway, I began building the boat. Usually when you build a boat, it is constructed on a strong back that is bolted to the floor. I chose to build my boat on a trailer so I could take it to a professional if I needed help. I needed help getting the frame and the planks in correct alignment. See all those little dots on the bottom and sides? They are countersunk screws. Each one needs a bung or plug. There are thousands of them. The shaft needed to be at a precise angle. I needed help to get it right. In the end, the shaft and the engine lined up within 1/1000th of an inch. Here, the engine is being fitted for the first time. The drawings were not much help in the construction of the deck frames. Each frame is different and must have the proper relationship to the others, so that the planks, when they are put in place, will smoothly flow across the deck without high spots or low spots. I would first make the pattern out of plywood and use that as a pattern to make the final frame out of mahogany. The construction technique is called plank and batten. Here you can see the battens. The planks meet in the center of the battens. They are then fastened down for a strong, watertight seam. As you can see in this photo, it's a tight fit between the engine and the deck. At last, the deck is going on. The gas tank is installed under the aft deck. The deck is on and the bungs are in. Some of the hardware is custom made, like the rudder and the exhaust port on the right side. I first made the exhaust port out of wood. I then painted the wood and took it to a foundry and had it cast out of bronze. Next, I shaped and polished the bronze to make it ready for the boat. Now I'm ready to put stain on the boat. The stain is on and the varnishing has begun. It took 18 coats of varnish, and between coats you have to sand. After the last coat of varnish, you have to sand again. Then it is buffed out with the polishing compound. All of the hardware is now installed, and it is ready for the waterline and Coast Guard numbers. In this view of the cockpit, you can see the steering wheel from a Model T Ford, and to its right, the throttle control from a vintage tractor. At last, the boat is launched.